Rama Rama Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Granth Raj Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Srila Prabhupada Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Raj Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Haribo.
Hare Krishna. So today we are very, very fortunate to have amongst us His Holiness Vilas Swami Maharaj. Maharaj was born in Philadelphia in 1946. He graduated from University of Pennsylvania in 1968. He met Srila Prabhupada disciples in July 1969 in Paris. Maharaj moved to temple in London, Bury Place in December 1969. Later he returned to Paris and opened the first temple in Paris. And he was initiated in June 1970 and became the temple president there in Paris. Maharaj invited Srila Prabhupada to Paris in 1971 to the first ISKCON temple inauguration in France. And he got married in 1973 in Paris. And he came down from the temple presidentship in 1973 to focus on the Grahastha activities. Shortly after that, he started a business called Spiritual Sky. Maharaj took on the president responsibilities again in 1979, and he opened a new temple building in downtown Paris, and he remained president between 1979 to 81. Maharaj started Middle Eastern BBT between 1981 to 1988. He guided people in translating Bhagavad Gita, Beyond Birth and Death, Ishopanishad, coming back in Armenian and printed books with his own funds. Similarly, translation and printing of Ishopanishad and coming back in Turkish and coming back in Arabic. Maharaj made many donations for printing first Gitar Gun in Bengali. He also gave donations and printed books in Swahili, Japanese, Urdu and Oriya languages. Maharaj became GBC in 1988 and went to Berkeley, California when the temple was in foreclosing proceedings. He served there as temple president and GBC for 4.5 years, during which time he paid off all the mortgage. He also completely renovated the entire temple building inside and out. In 1991, Maharaj moved to Seattle because the temple in Seattle was going to close down and the deities were about to move to Alachua, Florida. Maharaj expertly managed temple congregation and paid off all the mortgage in 2004. By 2008, he built a brand new temple in Sammamish, Washington, costing $4.5 million. And by then there was a developed community of 50 initiated devotees and significant congregation. Maharaj in 2010 became GBC of Phoenix and helped secure the temple from outside influence. From 1988 onwards, he helped the Vancouver temple to free itself from the influence of potentially damaging individuals. Eventually in 2006, he organized the payoff for the entire mortgage amount. In 2011, he became GBC for Hawaii and worked to stabilize the temple that has experienced difficulties for the last 8 years. Maharaj has 6 children with his wife Parijata Devi Mataji, and he has been living as Vanaprastha since 2003. All his children are grown up and are independent. Maharaj also applied to put on the list to become a sannyasi. Maharaj's home base is in Seattle, Washington. His role as GBC representative and president, he has given extensive day-to-day support to the $4.5 million temple and cultural center built by local devotees of Seattle. He has since started a second Radha Krishna temple also there, which has Balaji deities also. In addition, he also started a full-fledged Vedic university with 8 concurrent Discover Yourself courses, 6 concurrent Bhakti Gita courses, and several local school-based programs. For the last 2 years, he also has been guiding the operations of a modern Gurukul called Synergy International School. In 1998, he also created an institution called Northwest Share for the purpose of organizing programs for the benefit of the general public in the areas of health, arts, relationships, and education, and create an organization of volunteers talented in various areas to share their knowledge and services freely with other people, especially those who have not had the opportunity for economic means to avail themselves for good health and education, arts and culture. Here he has also implemented public welfare programs promoting vegetarian cooking, raw food diet, arts and culture, music, dance, drama, public speaking, mentoring, interpersonal relationships, arts, education, etc., for empowering people with skills to enrich their personal lives. In 2001, Northwest Share opened the first free vegetarian restaurant in Seattle, which has been serving high quality meals for more than 5,000 people every year since. In addition, in 2012, he started a first cow protection farm and spiritual center in Redmond, Washington, and subsequently a second cow protection farm in Black Diamond, Auburn, Washington. Maharaj is a member of GBC since 1988. He also serves as zonal secretary for many countries: Algeria, Burkina Faso, Chad, Djibouti, Egypt, Ethiopia, Gambia, Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Morocco, Niger, Senegal, Somalia, Sudan, Tunisia, Afghanistan, Iran, Alaska, Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington State. He is also co-zonal secretary for Armenia, British Columbia, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Also, I heard from Leland through that Maharaj personally takes care of 100 cows every day, serving for 6 hours, serving 3 farms there, and also actively engaging all the congregation in serving the farm. So we are very, very fortunate to have Maharaj here at Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan's temple. So we'll welcome heartily Maharaj by once loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you, Maharaj.
Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22nd, verse number 31. Is that correct? Prasyat anusmritis chittam jnana brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prayas anusmritis chittam jnana brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prasyat yanusmritis chittam jnana brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prasyat anusmritim chittam jnanam brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prasyat anusmritim chittam jnana brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prasyat anusmritis chittam jnanam brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana. Ladies, anybody? Prasyat anusmritim chittam jnana brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prasyat anusmritim chittam jnana brahmsa smriti chaye tadrodam kavaya prahur atma panavam atmana prasyati becomes destroyed. Anusmriti, constantly thinking. Chittam, consciousness. Jnana brahmsaha, bereft of real knowledge. Smriti chaye, by destruction of remembrance. Tat rodam, choking that process. Kavaya, great learned scholars. Rahu, have opined. Atma, of the soul. Apanavam, destruction. Atmanaha, of the soul. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. So we can repeat. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The living entity of the soul is ever existing and eternal. It cannot be lost. But learned scholars say that it is lost when actual knowledge is not working. That is the difference between animals and human beings. According to less intelligent philosophers, animals have no soul, but factually, animals have souls. Due to the animals' gross ignorance, however, it appears that they have lost their souls. Without the soul, a body cannot move. That is the difference between a living body and a dead body. When the soul is out of the body is called dead. The soul is said to be lost when there is no proper knowledge exhibited. Our original consciousness is Krishna consciousness, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. When this consciousness is misguided and one is put into the material atmosphere, which pollutes the original consciousness, one thinks that he is a product of the material elements. Thus, one loses his real remembrance of his position as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as a man who sleeps forgets himself. In this way, when the activities of proper consciousness are checked, all the activities of the lost soul are performed on a false basis. At the present moment, human civilization is acting on a false platform of bodily identification. Therefore, it can be said that the people of the present age have lost their souls, and in this respect, they are no better than animals. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul lost. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Haribol. So this is a very important purport because it's explaining the position of 99.99% of human beings in this world today. And there's about, what's the number now? 7 to 8 trillion people on this planet. 99.9% are functioning on a false platform, which means almost every decision they make is wrong. You don't have to translate, right? So this is a dire condition. That means almost everybody is in a state of illusion, and they're making so many mistakes And because of that, they're unnecessarily suffering. When I say they, we are unnecessarily suffering due to agyaya or tamas, is ignorance. So how can we wake up the sleeping soul? Jeev jago, jeev jago. The only way is by preaching, doing sankirtan, distributing prasadam, having festivals, and being kind to people and showing them how good it is to have love and devotion for Krishna and how it solves all of life's problems. What are life's problems? Birth, old age, disease, and death. That 99.99% think that this is normal, although they don't like it. But it's not normal. It's an artificial imposition on the soul, because the soul is eternal. It's part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, all this suffering in this world today is unnecessary. But people don't understand that. So therefore, the mission of Krishna consciousness is to, one, explain the science of Krishna, and two, teach people to love Krishna. These are the two main purposes of Krishna consciousness. But in order to do that, you have to be a highly skilled preacher. And the first point of knowledge is humility. So therefore, without humility, knowledge is not anything that you can actually teach someone else. The number one thing is humility. Nadanam, najanam, nasundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani janmani swari, bhavatat bhakti rahaitu tvaye. I don't want any amount of wealth. I don't want any followers. I don't want a beautiful woman or a handsome man. I don't even want mukti. I simply want to be engaged in the service of Krishna, life after life. This is the position of a genuine preacher of Krishna consciousness. And what this verse says today, that if you have material desires in your heart, you cannot be an effective preacher. And people will see it right away, because you won't be able to convince them to give up sense gratification if you are engaged in sense gratification. And sense gratification is gross and subtle. That means that sometimes on a fast day, people drink water underwater so nobody sees them, you see. So in order to engage in sense gratification, you have to have what you think is privacy. And in order to actually engage in sense gratification, you have to think that no one is seeing you. But that's not true. Krishna is in your heart. Krishna is in my heart. Krishna is in the heart of everyone. So it's impossible to be alone and do things that no one sees. Some people think, well, I have my house, I'll lock the door. I have my bedroom, I'll lock the door. I'll close all the windows and put the blinds down. That way no one can see what I'm doing. That's not true. Krishna is going to see. The insects are going to see. The devas are going to see. Therefore, no one can do anything without it being seen by Krishna. But due to ignorance, people think that they are more clever than the Lord. And when a person has continual material desires in their mind and does not let go of them, then Krishna says, okay, that's what you want. That's what you're going to get. Man proposes, God disposes. Therefore, Krishna will help you forget him. So you can't even engage in sense gratification independently. Everything we do needs the help of Krishna. So if we cannot get rid of hankerings are obsessive material desires that just don't go away from the mind. And every day people are thinking about this. In other words, outside they're chanting Hare Krishna, inside they're doing the Bhangra. There's a nightclub inside. You say, this is very dangerous. And anyone who's like that, they cannot be a successful preacher. They can preach, but it won't be successful. So therefore, it's absolutely incumbent on all of us to strictly follow the regulative principles and also chant Hare Krishna as much as we can. Now, we also say you should chant 24 hours a day, but that means not simply chanting, but in some way or other being connected to Krishna through Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, and all those different 8 types of devotional service. As long as you're engaged in devotional service, you are connected to Krishna through his holy name and through the service. So the one desire that we should all have is, please give me more service. And we should not be afraid of accepting more responsibilities in Krishna consciousness. We should never bite off more than we can chew, but we should be always very, very attentive to doing the service we have very well and also to eventually increase it. This is what happens in the spiritual world. Devotional service in the spiritual world is eternal and it's always increasing because everybody there has a spiritual body. They don't have to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. They're free of all these things. And therefore, every day they're having Mahotsav. It's like Diwali every day. They're having a great time. And there is what's called measurement and increments in the spiritual world. That means every time you think, oh, this is the best, it can't get any better than this, immediately Krishna increases his knowledge, Krishna increases his bliss, and you suddenly realize, no, wait a minute, this is even better. So there's no boredom in the spiritual world. In the material world, people get bored easily, especially kids. They say, Daddy, Mommy, I'm bored. Of course, Daddy and Mommy are not paying attention to keeping the child engaged in educational and not educational, but in Krishna consciousness, which is educational also. So this boredom or the feeling of being lonely, all this is Maya. In other words, Maya is something that is not, or illusion. Now let's ask the question, what is actually an illusion? An illusion is something you believe that was never true at any time. In the past, the present, and future. It was never true. And what's the first illusion? I am this body. At no time are you the body, although you may think you are. Because if you say, I am this body, I can ask you, which body are you talking about? Were you that little sperm that came from your dad to your mom? Were you that little pea after the sperm and the ovum connect? Very quickly turns into a little pea with 9 holes that eventually develop into 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, a mouth, an anus, and a genital. Or are you the embryo in the womb? Or are you that little baby that was pushed out? Or are you the body that you had when you were 6 years old, or 16, or 26, or 36, or 86? You cannot say, I am this body. I can ask you, which body you're talking about? So this is the first illusion, something that you believe that was never true at all. It wasn't true in the past, wasn't true in the present, and won't be true in the future. So, therefore, how do we get out of this Maya, this illusion, this illusory state where we're making mistakes all the time? Well, we have to follow the advice of great devotees, like, for example, Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, 10th chapter, 7th verse. He says, "O my Lord, best of the givers of benediction, if you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray from your Lordship that within the core of my heart, there will be no more material desires." So after Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, he was roaring. He was very, very angry, and everyone was afraid, including Lakshmi Devi, including Lord Brahma, and all the Devatas. But they wanted to calm down the Lord, but they were afraid to approach him and put a garland on him. So they gave it to Prahlad Maharaj. He was not afraid. Why? Because he was not duped by the masked man illusion. What does that mean? Well, let's say there's a play, and one of the brahmacharis in the play is Kamsa, right? So they dress him up with a wig, mustache, different things to make him look like a demon, right? Maybe some tattoos, maybe some black on his face, and maybe his teeth don't look right, and so forth. So now he comes out and he's acting like a demon. Now young kids will think that's actually Hiranyakashipu, or that's actually Kamsa, right? That's called the masked man fallacy. They get fooled, right? Just like sometimes you might see a very beautiful woman with high heels and a very tight dress with makeup and long hair that looks very nice. And you think, oh, that must be a very beautiful woman. So if you walk faster and actually take a look, you see it's an old lady, but she's made up, right? So you got tricked by the clothing, by the maquillage, and all those things. So it's like Surpanaka or Putana. The demons, they know how to change their body and to look like they're beautiful. Nowadays, they do the same thing using Botox and using plastic surgery and so forth, right? But they're still demons. And so Prahlad Maharaj was not tricked by the appearance of this unbelievable creature called Narasinghadev, half man, half lion, with very long nails and very sharp teeth. He was not, because he recognized his Lord. So, therefore, he took the garland and put it on his neck. And the Lord calmed down. And he spoke like this. He said, look, you have served me so nicely, Prahlad. You tolerated all the attempts by your parents to kill you because you remained loyal to me. You were poisoned, but you offered the food first to me, and I nullified the poison. You were able to eat it, not die. You were thrown off a cliff. You were put into a den of poisonous snakes, and so forth. But you tolerated it. You did not get afraid, and you remained always focused on me by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So we can learn from Prahlad Maharaj. See, as soon as there's some problem, most people get very anxious and they get confused. And like, for example, when there is tragedy in life, like, for example, let's say you have a child and the child gets very sick and dies. And sometimes the parents get very bitter. They say, I was praying, I did everything, and still Krishna did not save my child. Therefore, I don't believe in Krishna anymore, you see. So these are tests to see. First of all, we don't know what anybody's karma is. Karma is always going to be a mixed bag of good things and bad things. So, therefore, the reason I joined Krishna consciousness was when I learned, after hearing Bhagavad Gita and talking to devotees, that it's possible to purify or stop your karma and live karma free. And I said, wow, because I knew I had bad karma. By the time I graduated college, I knew I had very bad karma. And then I heard from the devotees that there's one thing that's not controlled by karma, that is surrender to Krishna. Even the worst person in the world, if they surrender to Krishna, Krishna will accept them. Just like Krishna accepted Vibhishan. He accepted Guha as Ramachandra. So, therefore, there are certain advantages in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, Kaliya dosa nidei rajan astihi ekamahadguna kirtana deva krishnasya bhaktasangasya jayate. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. You can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Simply by chanting. And Lord Chaitanya made it very, very easy in this age. Chant Hare Krishna. Take prasadam. Dance. Sing. Go in Sankirtan. Hear every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Engage in deity worship. Always respect everyone. How do you preach to an ant? You know how you preach to an ant is very small. Prabhupada explains, if you see an ant, take 1 grain of sugar that has been offered and put it in the path of the ant and go like this. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's the way you preach to an ant. Why? Because every living entity is a talking, walking mandir. Why? Because Paramatma is in the heart and Jivatma is in the heart. So, therefore, the vision of a devotee is he doesn't see the body. He sees the presence of Paramatma in the heart. Therefore, he gives Dandavad, even to the dacoit, because he's not seeing the body, he's seeing the soul and its relationship to Krishna. When Prabhupada came to America, he went to the worst place, the lower Manhattan, which is called the Bowery. The worst people in the world were there at that time. I was one of them. And Prabhupada came and he said, oh, no, it's impossible to help these people. First of all, they're not born in India. They have no sadachar. They're just low-class people taking drugs, engaged in illicit sex, gambling, meat eating. No, I'll go somewhere else. No, he stayed there. Why? Because he was samadarshi. He did not see with prejudice. He saw that Krishna is the primary quality of everything. That means that he was seeing Paramatma in the hearts of all these low-class people, and he simply preached to them, gave them prasadam, got them to dance and come out on Harinam, Sankirtan. He did festivals, and he did this by starting with no money. He was able to get a little bit of money, and he put that money down to rent this very small store called Matchless Gifts. And he didn't know how he was going to pay the next rent. But he had complete faith in his guru and in Krishna. So that's the symptom of a genuine devotee. The devotee never says, this is impossible. In fact, it's not in the devotee's dictionary. Impossible is not in the devotee's dictionary. Because he knows if he sincerely serves Krishna without any material desires in his heart, Krishna will help him. This is explained in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse 32 to 35, where it says that Arjuna refers to Krishna and he calls him Govinda. And Prabhupada says, Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda because Govinda is the object of all pleasures for cows and senses. By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his or her senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. However, the Lord will satisfy the senses of the living entities as much as they deserve by their karma, previous karma, but not to the extent that they may desire. But when one takes the opposite way, namely when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all the spiritual desires of living entities are satisfied. Now we understand why Prabhupada was so successful. He is and will remain the most successful person that left Bharat and came to the West. Much more successful than Vivekananda or Paramahansa, this one, or Nityananda, or this one or that one. Why? Because he came without any material desires in his heart, but he replaced those desires with an infinite number of desires to please Krishna. That therefore, it says, when one takes the opposite way, namely, when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all those spiritual desires of the living entity are satisfied. So if you want to be successful in life, here's the secret. Secret is, don't be a Mayavadi. Mayavadi wants to give up all desires, including the desire to please Krishna. That's Maya. But if you purify those desires and replace them with pure desires to please Krishna, then you will be successful in everything you do. You want to be successful? Now you have the secret. Very easy. Just give up all the nonsense desires and simply desire to please Krishna. And Krishna says, Shinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Vidyantaksto Vadrani Vidunoti Satam. When one hears about Krishna from Vedic literature, or hears about him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, becomes a well-wisher and purifies the devotee of all material desires and protects him and instructs him so that he can come back to God. This is an important verse. If we take an interest in hearing about Krishna, then Krishna takes an interest in us. Just like, let me ask somebody a question. I'll ask you a question, young man. What's your name? Huh? Kailash. Okay, Kailash. That's a good South Indian. If you heard that there's someone in Hyderabad that's speaking very nicely about you, he's saying, Kailash, such a good devotee. His heart is clean. He only speaks nicely. He engages always in Krishna consciousness and Sankirtan, distributing food. He's like a saint. Would you like to know who that person is? Huh? No? Yes? Now you know one thing about God. See, if you analyze yourself seriously, you can understand up to 78% the qualities of God. But just by analyzing, like for example, let's say you have two friends. One friend always gives you something. The other friend always wants to take something from you. Which friend would you like? Now you know two things about Krishna. If you take an interest in hearing about Krishna, that means coming to class every day. By the way, Prabhupada wanted us to have 3 classes a day. Not 1 class a day, not 2. 3 classes a day. That's how important coming to class and hearing reverently and submissively and asking questions. The whole Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna is asking questions, Krishna is answering. The whole Padma Purana is Krishna's wife Shiva's wife, Parvati, asking Shiva questions, and he's giving her. The whole Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami is answering the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. So this is the life of a devotee. The other people, they want to smoke ganja, they want to dance and be a fool, they want to eat meat to be happy. Devotees, they want Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. That's their happiness in life. That's what gives them vigor and strength and intelligence, this regular hearing and chanting and repeating, and then smaranam. Now they're able to remember things. If you read something, you're not going to remember hardly anything. You can say, oh no, I got my Bhakti Shastra. If I start asking you questions, you probably will not be able to answer all of them because you've forgotten things. So therefore it says in English, tell me, I'll forget everything. Instruct me, I might remember something. Engage me, I'll never forget. So the engagement is practical, time-sensitive, devotional service. If you're engaged in time-sensitive, devotional service, your memory will be surcharged and you'll be able to understand what's being said in class. Most people, they come to class, they can't wait till it's over. Because after class, you can eat. So they're wondering, how long is he going to talk? But people who are awakened spiritually, they say, I don't want it to stop. I want him to keep speaking. Everything he's speaking makes sense to me. And it's encouraging me to be a better devotee. This is the difference between someone who is dull-brained because they can't get material desires out of their mind, and someone who has cleansed their mind of all nonsense. Now they're like a sponge. You can't even calculate how much water it can hold. Right? So your mind can. Well, I'll tell you what your potential is. Brahma is a jiva like us. Surya is a jiva like us. Varuna is a jiva like us. Indra is a jiva like us. All these great demigods were very, very powerful, and they're knowledgeable, and they're very close to Krishna. They're jivas. They're not incarnations of Krishna. They are emanations of Krishna, but they're limited. But they have come to almost to the peak of their development. They're still in the material world because they still want to dominate. But that can be purified if they do all their duties as demigods correctly, then they'll go back to God. So that means every one of you could become as powerful as Surya and control the sun. Surya controls the sun and he's just a jiva. But because he developed Krishna consciousness to a very high level, he's been given that responsibility. Today, everybody is being stupid by modern education. Modern education is based on what's called atheistic humanism. You probably don't know what it means. You can look it up on the computer later on. But it basically means this. The atheistic humanists, their way of teaching has been accepted by the American schools and the Indian schools. Therefore, they begin their teaching like this. They say, 1, we cannot validate the existence of God because we can't measure God. We can't see God. So for us, God doesn't exist. Okay, so they just canceled God. Then they say, we don't have any evidence of the soul because we can't see it. Well, obviously they can. It's 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. How are you going to see that? It's smaller than an atom. So they said, then they canceled that. Now they canceled Krishna. They canceled Vaikuntha. They canceled Brahmajyoti. They canceled Vaikuntha. They canceled Goloka. Now they say, we only accept empirical knowledge. Well, empirical means what they can see with their senses. Now, wait a minute. How much can you see with your senses? We know that the senses are limited. They're imperfect. Our senses make mistakes. We're easily illusioned. And we have a cheating propensity. So how good is the knowledge if you limit yourself to only what your senses can see? It's going to be very imperfect. And therefore, because it's imperfect, most of the definitions, like in a dictionary, like Webster's Dictionary or Oxford Dictionary, are either incomplete or flat out wrong. You're going to the dictionary to find out what words mean. And those definitions, I can guarantee you, are incomplete or wrong. Like, for example, if you look up, what is yoga? Look it up in your, tell us what that definition is. And you're going to be surprised now. This is the definition of yoga. What does it say? No, yoga. Y-O-G-A. Okay, it's a system of exercise. Is that the first definition or is that the second definition? Okay, stop. Is yoga Hindu? You tell me. It has nothing to do with Hinduism. By the way, Hindu is the wrong word. You should not use these two words, Indian or India and Hindu. If you use the word India, you're being controlled still by the British. If you use the word Hindu, you're also being controlled by the Muslims. You have to come back to the real word. This country is called Bharat. And you are not Indians, you are Bharatiyas. And the identification, so you have Hindu and you have India. India is a word that the British use for conquered people. You are not a conquered people. You are Bharatiyas, and you're not Hindu. That's a mispronunciation of Sind by the Muslims. So what are you? You are Sanatan Dharmis. You are Varnashram Dharman. You are Krishna conscious. So if you use these other words, India and Hindu, you're admitting, you're being identified by the British and the Muslims. And it's wrong. So already you're being controlled still by these two invaders of your country. You have to reject these things completely and go back to the original identity. You are Bharatiyas and you're not Hindus. You are followers of Varnashram Dharma or Sanatan Dharma. Okay, so you see those are two misleading definitions. Many of the words in the dictionary are misleading or flat out wrong. Now, how can we learn what the real definitions are? Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada is defining so many words correctly. Like, for example, the doctrine of illusion. The Mayavadis, they use the same words that we use, where they have a doctrine of illusion. Vaishnavas have a doctrine of illusion. But the Mayavadis' concept of illusion is different than the Vaishnavas' concept of illusion. The Mayavadis say that the whole material world is an illusion. What do they say? They say, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. They say only Brahman is true, Jagat is false. They also say that the jivas are an illusion. There's only one soul. Kevala Advaita. There's only one soul. That's Brahman. So by saying that, they also cancel Krishna. They also say when Krishna, if he appears in a material world, he appears with a material body. So therefore, they refuse to accept that he's God. So you see, their concept of illusion, that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, cancels the whole material world and cancels your souls. Now, what do Vaishnavas say is illusion? They don't say that the material world is an illusion. They say it's temporary. Therefore, it has existence. Why? Because it's coming from Krishna. It says apara prakriti, inferior spiritual energy. It's actually spiritual. It's actually eternal. But it goes through two states of vyakta and avyakta. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's invisible. Then there's a higher paraprakriti, which is the spiritual world and all the jivas. We are part of paraprakriti. We're not part of aparaprakriti, right? So you see, all these definitions, all these words are correctly explained in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. If you look these words up in the dictionary, you're going to be misled. They're going to give you incomplete or false definitions. Okay, so now, to go further, Lord Chaitanya taught us how to pray for benedictions from the Lord. He said, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitamba, Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani, Janmanisware, Bhavatat Bhakti Rahaitaki. Oh my Lord, I do not want from you any amount of wealth, nor many followers, nor beautiful wife, for these are all materialistic desires. But if I have to ask you for any benediction, I pray that in whatever form of life I may take my birth, under any circumstances, I will not be bereft of your transcendental devotional service. So the only thing the devotee is asking for is service, devotional service. Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavanyas tatpata tatumam tatpato yatva vishiti tat anantaram. Krishna says it's only by devotional service that I can be understood. So the proof that you have read Bhagavad Gita, the proof that you have read Srimad Bhagavatam is if you are engaged 24 hours a day in devotional service. That's the proof. And if you have Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, Bhakti Vedanta diplomas, but you're not engaged full-time in devotional service, you have not understood Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Get this straight. Devotional service is the proof of the pudding, as we say in English, that you actually have understood. So therefore, it says here, devotees are always on a positive platform, in contrast to the Mayavadis, who want to make everything impersonal or void. One cannot remain void, sunyavadi. Rather, one must possess something. Therefore, the devotees on the positive side want to possess something. And this possession is very nicely described by Prahlad Maharaj, who says, if I must take some benediction from you, O Lord Nrsingadev, I pray that in the core of my heart, there may not be any material desire. I desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's the only thing. Okay, so then in the 7th canto, 10th chapter, 8th verse, is a very interesting verse that is a sequel to the verse that we read, to the verse that we're studying today in the Bhagavatam. It says, Indriyani manak prana atmadharmo driti mati pri shri teja smriti satyam yasya nasyanti janmana. O my Lord, because of lusty desires from the very beginning of my birth, the functions of the senses, mind, life, body, religion, patience, intelligence, shyness, opulence, strength, memory, and truthfulness are vanquished. What does this verse mean? It means that if you have only one material desire, everything that he listed there will be wrong. you will not have patience. You will not have religion. You will not see things correctly. That's just one desire. But in Kali Yuga, people have infinite desires. This is why they're suffering. This is why they're making so many mistakes. Even one desire is enough to corrupt every decision you make in your life. That's how dangerous these material desires are. And that's what's being explained here. And Prabhupada says, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Kaman Hit Rogam. Materialistic life means that one is afflicted by the formidable disease called lusty desires. Liberation means freedom from lusty desires because it is only due to such desires that one must accept repeated birth and death. Now let us ask a question. Where is lust coming from? Dahayatu vishayam sangat tesu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodha pajayate. While observing the objects of the senses, one may develop attachment. When attachment increases, comes lust. That is obsessive attachment. And when there's lust, if lust is frustrated, there's anger. And when there's anger, there's delusion. Now let's understand what delusion means. Delusion and illusion are a little different. When you get angry because you didn't get what you want, you didn't get the sense gratification that you want, you get angry. When you get angry, you come into an illusory state of mind. You begin to believe things that are not true and have never been true. Like, for example, this person is my enemy because I wanted to marry this lady and he married her and I wasn't able to marry her. Therefore, he's my enemy and I want to kill him. This is illusion. Now, if you actually go and kill him, that action is called delusion. You've become delusional and you're going to go and kill somebody. There was one devotee and he was my good friend. I was talking to him. Then I didn't see him for about 2-3 weeks. The next time I saw him, he was crying. I said, "What's the matter?" "Oh, she doesn't love me. She doesn't want to talk to me anymore." I said, "What?" I said, "Who are you talking about?" He said, "I love this lady." I said, "When did you meet her?" 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks ago? "Yeah, but she doesn't love me anymore." I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, No, you don't understand." "Yeah, you're sure I don't understand. I don't understand why you fell in love with somebody and now she doesn't like you. You're crying and you can't chant Hare Krishna." "No, I can't chant Hare Krishna. I can't do anything." You see how crazy people are? This the Hayato, seeing something. So let's say a woman sees a very handsome man, or a man sees a very beautiful woman. If you are Samadarshi, then you don't see the body. You see Paramatma. You see the Jiva. Now you're really seeing. But if you see the body, you don't see it. It's just like the story Prabhupada tells about liquid beauty. Right? You know that story. I won't have to repeat it. So all this and Sankhya Yoga is like this. Sankhya Yoga breaks down the body to 24 elements, right? Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and the objects of the senses, which are the mantras, and then there's the knowledge acquiring senses, mind, intelligence, and then there's an ego, and then there's also the working senses, arms, legs, tongue, anus, genital. It ends up 24 elements. So what does that mean? That means let's take a beautiful person and put him on the dissecting table. And you get a knife and you make a cut right here. And you open up the skin. Already you lost your attraction to that person. So what is it that we're attracted to? It's not even 1/8 of an inch of skin. That's what we're attracted to. And as soon as you open the body, that attraction will go away because you see blood, you see plasma, you see ligaments, you see joints, you see intestines full of stool. If you want to see a person correctly, you should see them as Paramatma. But if you don't have that spirituality, then you should see him as a walking sewer. Everybody is a walking sewer. You know, the intestines are full of stool and urine. You see, so that's the correct way of seeing things if you're not Krishna conscious. But if you are Krishna conscious, you don't look at the sewer; you look at Paramatma. So we're not seeing things correctly. The word for philosophy in English is philosophy. It's made of 2 Greek words. It means the love of wisdom. Now, what is the word for philosophy in Sanskrit? Does anybody know? Okay, don't say anything because you guys. You know what it is? The word for philosophy in Sanskrit? Huh? No. It's darshan. How you see. Now, a mother sees her child with love and devotion. But a child molester looks at the same child and sees an object that they can exploit. 2 people are looking at the same thing, and there's a world of difference of how they're seeing it. That's why the word for philosophy in Sanskrit is darshan. It's how you see things. Now, right now, everyone is seeing things in terms of the new god of India, which is called Rupiah. That's the new god of India. They see everything in terms of rupees, how much rupees they can make, how much profit they can make. There was this one man, in his life, he never played the lottery in India. So he went to a restaurant called the Taj Mahal, and he ordered 1 dosa and 1 nariyal chutney. So the waiter, whose name was Ahmed, he said, hey, called the waiter, the cook. The cook's name was Akbar. He said, Akbar, ek dosa, ek nariyal chutney. So Akbar was making the dosa, and he was thinking, I'm going to make 2 rupees, 10 rupees on the dosa. And I'm going to make 20 rupees on this nariyal chutney. And with my 30 rupees, I'm going to go and buy a lottery. Then they served food. And when the man ate the food, they tell Akbar that that was the best dosa and nariyal chutney I ever ate. And he left, and he's driving home, and he sees a big sign, Indian lottery, 5 crore. And something comes into his mind. He turns into the store, buys the lottery ticket. Now the question is, where did the desire to buy a lottery ticket come from? It comes from Akbar. Therefore, you should never eat something that's not prasadam, because people put their misconceptions into the food. They're not devoted. Very dangerous to eat food that's not been offered. One time I did puja on Griha Pravesh, one lady's house, and after the puja, she said, Babuji, please come and have prasad. I said, okay, can I ask you questions? She said, yes, what is it? I said, did you cook? No. We got it from the restaurant. I said, where was the restaurant? Hyderabad, what's the name of it? Biryani. I said, well, I'm going to skip that now. Just give me maybe like some garam dud and give me an orange or something. He says, why? Are you sick? I said, no, I'm not sick. But I don't eat Hyderabadi biryani. Hyderabad. So she was calling it prasadam. Not everything is not prasadam. Right? Prasadam is a specific thing. It has to be, first of all, the lady or the man have to have clean clothes on. They should have chanted their rounds already, and they are meditating now. This is a meditation. Cooking is a meditation on Krishna. And they're meditating to do everything very clean, proper, and make the taste, Krishna's taste, and make the ingredients all clean ingredients, no lasan, no pyaz, and no junk. Right? And then you have to offer it with love and devotion. And if there's real love and devotion, that Krishna offers it back as prasad. Now, prasad is no longer regular food. It's a supernatural substance that if you put it into your body, it will purify your material desires and purify your body also. So we have to understand how important these things are. Then it says, and I'll stop with this, it says that as long as one's lusty desires are unfulfilled, one must take birth after birth to fulfill them. Because of material desires, therefore, one performs various types of activities and receives various types of bodies, with which to try to fulfill desires that are never satisfied. Now, this is the point. If we are not Krishna conscious, we're going to try and do things that are impossible to achieve. Like, for example, it says, Daivi esa gunamai, mamamaya duratyaya. It says, basically, this gunamai, or this material energy, belongs to Krishna, and it's impossible to overcome. However, mam eviye prapadyante, mayametam tarantite, if you surrender to Krishna, then it becomes possible. Something impossible becomes possible. So, all the 99.9% of the people in the world are trying to do something impossible. That is, to become amara. That is, to enjoy sense gratification, to please their body selfishly or self-indulgence. These are impossible goals to achieve, but yet they're trying to do it. It's just like going to the moon. It's impossible for human beings to go to the moon. Now, I know someone goes, oh no, the Americans went 50 years ago. No, they didn't. The whole thing is a hoax. And now they said, well, there's only dust on the moon and there's no water. We're going to go to Mars now. So 50 years later that they supposedly went to the moon, they haven't even tried to go there yet again, because they never did in the first place. They tricked everyone so that they could get a lot of money to do more research. Now they're going to go to Mars. Elon Musk and his SpaceX rocket is going to take people to Mars. Well, Elon, you go first, and you tell us what you see there. This is crazy stuff. He put an advertisement to get volunteers to go on the first one-way trip to Mars. You know how many people signed up? 160,000 idiots. You see, the whole thing is a hoax, and people are being fooled by it. Not only that, the education kids are getting today, it's all nonsense, because they teach you there's no God. When you die, there's nothing. So they bring you down to a very, very tight expectation in life, which is only sense gratification. And to have the sense gratification, you have to become an IT or AI person. Now, this is crazy. See? Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you think Alexander the Great and Muhammad Ghazni, the Mughals, the Afghanis, the British invaded Calcutta? Why didn't they invade Siberia? What's the answer? Anybody know? What? India was the wealthiest country in the world. They didn't have Jamshedji Tata's factories. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have televisions. They didn't have bombs. They didn't have Hyderabadi biryani, right? They were living in self-sufficient villages, just like Vyasadeva. He's writing the Vedas now for the next age. He doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't have a typewriter or a computer. He doesn't have any of those things. But he's writing the most enlightened knowledge in the world. And before all these people invaded India, India was the richest country. Why? They didn't have any technology. They've had a higher technology. And that's explained in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 10th verse, where it says, Sahayagya prajashistva puravacha prajapati anyanya parsavistva dvam esavosvista kamaduk. Lord Brahma says, the material creation that Brahma is the secondary creator of, Krishna is the first creator, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to God. I'm sorry. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." This is the whole plan of God. That if you offer yajna, and the only yajna that you can do successfully now in Kali Yuga is Sankirtan Harinam Yajna, then Krishna will order the devatas to give you, because the devatas are the order suppliers, right? The sun, the rain, the changing seasons, the winds, and etc. They will supply everything you need to live peacefully, happily, and prosperously without working hard. And at the end, you go back to Godhead. This is right there in the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, if there is this connection to Krishna, then Krishna will order the demigods who are controlling everything. They're controlling the modes of material nature. They're controlling birth, death, old age, and disease. They're controlling eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They're controlling everything. And they're controlling the sun, the wind, the rain, everything. They will supply everything easily. So you don't have to work hard. And you have plenty of time to be Krishna conscious. This is a higher science. That's why India was the richest country in the world. They didn't get rich by industries. They didn't get rich by AI and IT. They got rich by cooperating with Krishna, and Krishna ordered the demigods to cooperate with the people. This has to be, we have to, as we say in India, old is gold. We have to go back to the original culture of Bharat, which was Krishna consciousness. And then you will not have to work hard. You don't have to live in these concrete buildings. Go back to the villages where there's greenery. You grow your own food. You're not importing food. You're not importing like rice made by the Chinese. The rice is made out of plastic. You're eating plastic from China now. You're not eating food with, like, the worst food you can eat is the amla muraba. In that bottle, you drink the amla muraba because you think amla is good for you. What you don't understand is the amla muraba is full of sodium benzoate and sodium potassium, full of what you would call preservatives. Those preservatives go right into your liver, and you keep drinking it, you'll get liver cancer. The food in India is very dangerous today. It's full of junk. You're eating food cooked in dalda. You're eating food made with maida. You're eating things like amla muraba that is full of preservatives and colors, all these things. Indians never read. Like in our temple in Seattle, we have 15 signs in the shoe stall saying, please put your shoes on the you call it the racks. Nobody does it. You know why? Because Indians don't read. They just walk and throw their shoes and walk away. Do they do that here? Huh? So you see, here we have Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the greatest two scriptures in the whole universe, not just the earth, the whole universe. The Devatas read this, right? Or hear this. They recite it. And you have you were the richest country in the world before you got invaded. By the way, what's the name of that movie they're seeing now? Patan, right? Patan. You're seeing the Patan. That movie is all about how much the Muslims raped your women and killed the men and ruined your country. That's what that movie is about. And Hindus are going to it and looking at it as if it's entertainment to see Hindi women being raped and men being killed. This is nonsense. Everyone's going crazy in this country. It's your duty now to preach very proactively by doing massive Sankirtan and massive Prasadam distribution. These are the two astras. We don't have tanks and guns. We have Prasadam and Harinam Sankirtan. If you go out with 1,000 devotees every day doing Harinam Sankirtan and distributing Prasadam during the Harinam Sankirtan, you will convert the whole city of Hyderabad into Sanatan Dharma. I guarantee it. If you go out with 10 people or 15 people, people just look at you and just laugh. You go out with 1,000 or 2,000 devotees dressed nicely, women also dressed nicely, and everyone happy and dancing and chanting and handing out free prasadam to the people. They're going to be impressed, and you're going to take over this whole country by doing it. It's not difficult. This is what Lord Chaitanya did. He didn't preach when he went out on Sankirtan. He just did very ecstatic Sankirtan with hundreds and hundreds, thousands of devotees, and he distributed prasadam. That's the secret. So I'll stop right there. Do you have any questions? The rule is no question, no eat. So if you want to eat, ask one question. Yes, sir. Oh, that's Mike.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Maharaj, it's not directly related to what we discussed, but just out of curiosity, your last memory of coming to this temple, do you want to share, Maharaj?
What's that? What?
Your last memory of coming to this temple, Radha Madan Mohan, this temple. When did you come?
You want me to say that?
Yeah.
Say something about my last memory?
Yes, Maharaj.
Of coming to this temple?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, see, that was a different time. That was a time when, well, I was impressed because it was right in the city. And there was, easy access to get in. It's a beautiful temple. I was very impressed by the temple. And I was impressed by the artwork, deities, and the devotees. But at that time, they also had a big farm. There was like 600 acres. Right? And Prabhupada was talking about how much it was important that that farm be, developed, because he wanted the devotees to be self-sufficient. He had the same desire for Mayapur, that it be self-sufficient. They have fresh milk from the cows. They grow organic vegetables, and they offer it to the deities. And he said, if you grow massive amounts of vegetables and grains, and you cook it, offer to Krishna, and distribute it to the people for free, you will take over India. He said that. I can show you the letter where he says, this was his vision. that we have these farms. We have the temples in the city, but we also have farms, and we have self-sufficient farms, just using gobar and gomurt and biomass for fertilization of the land, and growing nutrient-dense vegetables, cooking them, offering it to Krishna, giving it to the people for free. Now, I want to tell you something. You do much better giving things free than selling them. Why? Because people begin to trust you. Getting the trust of the people is not an easy thing. But once they trust you, whatever you say, they'll do. But how do you get them to trust you? They have to see that you're givers, not takers. They have to see that you're not bunyas, you're genuine devotees. And you're very generous, very kind, and very humble. So you have to develop the sadachar of Vaishnavas. Then everything is easy. Just look at the Goswami. They gave away all their money, and they had no money. They came to Vrindavan, and they excavated the places of Krishna's pastimes, but they didn't have money to build temples. But they got huge donations. And even they had the donations, they still couldn't build the temples because they had to negotiate with the Muslims to get the marble or the granite or the stone, right? You see, because they were so highly evolved devotees. They were ministers in Bengal of Nawab Hussain Shah. They knew how to speak to the Muslims, even though the Muslims had complete control of all the stones and the granite and everything. And they were able to get the materials to build temples, and they got huge donations, but it didn't change their life. They continued to live under a different tree, sleep under a different tree every day, and they were hardly eating or sleeping. They were only eating a little bit every 2 days, 1 or 2 tablespoons of ghee that they would beg from the farmers, and they would be awake almost 22 hours a day, chanting and teaching people and writing scriptures. People trusted them because they didn't have any material desire. Their only desire was to please Krishna. So if you go out and develop that sadachara and you help the people, now which people should you help first? The most vulnerable ones. The ones that are living on the streets and raising their children in the street and living under these tarps. You see them. You have people like that here? Yeah. Those are the first people you should help. And sometimes people say, well, they're all lazy. They're not really interested in Krishna consciousness. That's not true. If you help them and they see you're genuine, you're not doing it for any material purpose. You're not going to say, oh, let me take your picture. We're going to send it to all our rich people. No, you're not using them as a ploy. You're genuinely there to help them. Just like I've been serving free prasadam for years. And I saw people who were very hungry. And they refused to take the prasadam from devotees because the devotees were treating them as if they're sudras or low-class people. And they didn't have the right attitude. And because of that, they refused the prasadam. You have to be very careful. People are not stupid. They know they can see if you're genuine or not genuine. They can see if you're interested in them or you're just interested to use them. So if those Swamis were 100% genuine. They had no material purpose. Their only purpose was to help people, even if it was only physically help. And then they got their trust. Then those people started asking them questions. Why am I suffering? How can I stop this suffering? What is the purpose of life? Because they trusted them. Once you get the trust of people, they will ask you questions and they'll accept you as a teacher. So I'll stop right there. I know it's getting late. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. This is Jai. Thank you.
Holiness Hare Vilas Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
You can leave my name out. Say Jai Shri Prabhupada. Once somebody glorifies you, scratch your butt. Remember who you really are. So just say Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Jai